Hello, good evening, and welcome to another wonderful edition of Eye on Pod, which is proudly brought to you by Goyle Company Limited, West Blue Consulting, Ghana Community Network Services, Serene Insurance, the Ghana Revenue Authority, as well as the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority. Media partners for this program: the Business and Financial Times, the Graphic Business, the Ghana Web, Business 24, Maritime, and Transport Digest, and a host of them. So tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. on GH1, if you tune to that platform, you should watch the abridged version of this program on there. Also on Ghana Television on Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. you should watch abridged version of this program. We're also live on Facebook, so Eye on Pod Ghana on Facebook. We're live right now on YouTube. You can also be following. So in case you want to step out, you can turn to your phone, get onto Facebook, and follow us from there. At the appropriate time, we would announce the WhatsApp message that you can contribute to this program, as well as the phone lines at the appropriate times. Folks, this week, we're going to go a bit continental, taking a look at the integration of the African continent. We're also to take a look at how we can harness the potential of the African continental free trade area as a country and also as a continent. So we'll be speaking to a host of experts, those who are really, they are deep in the subject, I should say. So you might want to stick around and enjoy the discourse that we are going to have in a very, very short while. In the meantime, we'll go for a quick commercial break. We'll be back shortly.
Tai fa semna ene nsu a etene hohoro nsa na mpuso wo baabi a unya nsuo ne semna fa sanitizer akohowo mu fa gu nsem na fa pepa nsa ho nyina sa wo yare a tene fie
na obebisa ho se ede na obeye ambra ususu se oni obi a wanya sa yare ni bi enye nhyiamu ana se wa ben obi a owo sa yare ni bi de se wo ye ni se obeto ohun punu mu na wafre number eda screen no so
shika wo fe ekomie obanya wosa ne ke helane na ejake mo fia mo ehia nya wo fia ekomi koni watching COVID-19 na nike oba sumo ake oba wabo ye ne ke biane obanya ni otwa telephone number ni ona biane.
Here's innovation from Goyle that takes you further. New Goyle Super Synthetic 5W20 and 5W30 lubes have been expertly crafted with the latest in liquid engineering technology, highly advanced for modern engines, prolongs oil change intervals, save you fuel, clean, protect and enhance engine performance. The way engines work has become complex, and Goyle has innovated to stay ahead. Expertly crafted lubricants that work excellently with all petrol and diesel engines of today. New Goyle Super Synthetic 5W20 and 5W30 lubes. Innovation that takes you further. Goyle. Good energy.
Electricity, then pay your taxes. Yeah. Our taxes, our future.
Because you see, without our taxes, we wouldn't have good roads, good schools, better hospitals, street lights, and other very important social amenities. When we pay our taxes, we give our children free and quality education. Talga, my money too small. Why should I pay my tax? Look, small. Salifo, it doesn't matter how small or big your business or income is. You still have to pay your taxes. The little taxes from each and every one of us, when put together, could give your community clean water or that deprived school with tables and chairs. Please pay your taxes. It is your responsibility. It is your civic duty. It is the law.
Oh, how are you?
Hi Yvonne, a few words please. Everyone is talking about the fire at your production house last week. How are you holding up? Has production stalled?
No, not at all. My crew and everyone on my set is perfectly fine because I insure with Serene Insurance. As a matter of fact, I've had all my equipment replaced, including the vehicles that were affected. My workers have been sorted out. Even my production downtime has been covered, so it's all good. I have a meeting to attend to, so I have to get going. Sorry about that.
Which insurance company did you mention?
Serene Insurance, the new face of insurance, a member of First Sky Group.
Utiliser les ports de Tema et de Takoradi, c'est avoir un traitement rapide et sécurisé de vos marchandises diverses en conteneurs, en sac ou en vrac, ainsi que tous vos véhicules en transit. Le Ghana a construit un parking bien pavé pour tous les véhicules en transit. Une nouvelle gare frigorifique pour le stockage de la marchandise congelée en transit. Avec un nouveau centre de traitement de données construit et la mise en œuvre efficace d'un guichet unique national qui permet aux données d'être accessibles par tous les intervenants, le traitement des dossiers dans les ports du Ghana est maintenant efficace et plus efficient. Utiliser les ports du Ghana, c'est profiter des systèmes de portes électroniques et d'exploitation des terminaux, ainsi que de la réservation des navires en ligne, entraînant ainsi un parc de camions fiable pour un acheminement de vos marchandises dans les brefs délais avec un suivi satellitaire jusqu'à nos frontières.
Les femmes, à vous les honneurs.
Les ports de Tema et de Takoradi célèbrent la femme. Que les bienfaits de cette célébration apportent plus de bénédictions.
Welcome back to Iron Port. So quite a number of things happened within the week. Some organized by the agencies within the port. Now, the Ghana Shippers Authority, for instance, had the Greater Accra Shippers Committee meetings. Quite a number of issues came out of that particular meeting. Let's listen to them. The Ghana Shippers Authority and the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority have renewed commitments to facilitate trade by air through regular interagency engagements for the benefit of exporters and importers. The two state agencies made the pledge when the Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Shippers Authority, Benonita Besmark, and her team paid a courtesy call on the Civil Aviation Authority. The visit formed part of the GSA's strategic plan to deepen its relationship with stakeholders in the shipping and logistics industry, with the overall objective of protecting and promoting the interest of shippers in Ghana. Benonita Besmark stressed the need for the two organizations to strengthen their collaborative efforts to remove trade bottlenecks inhibiting trade facilitation. She said it was in furtherance to this commitment that the GSA established a shipper complaint and support unit at the Kotoka International Airport to readily resolve complaints of shippers. Receiving the delegation, the Deputy Director General in charge of technical of the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, Engineer Charles Kriku, thanked the GSA for the visit and pledged his outfit's commitment to work more closely together in the interest of stakeholders. He expressed his organization's willingness to provide the GSA with up-to-date trade statistics on air cargo volumes. Other issues discussed during the visit were challenges faced by shippers as a result of the implementation of the new Integrated Customs Management Systems, ICUMs, and the need for a centralized database for all ministries, departments, and agencies for the registration of shippers, among others. The GSA team also had meetings with officials of the Ghana Airport Company Limited and Air Ghana and discussed other trade facilitation issues at the airport and the way forward to addressing them. Meanwhile, the Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority has seized opportunity of the Greater Accra Regional Shipper Committee meeting to sensitize stakeholders on the newly Integrated Customs Management System, ICUMS. A senior revenue officer of the GRA Customs and a member of the ICUM's task force, Esther Amekuji, said the new system provides a single login with one user account, which gives access to unique consignment reference, ministries, departments, and agencies, that's MDAs, and Bill of Entries, BOE creations. She said ICUMS is also expected to make room for easy correction of minor errors, such as typos on submitted BOEs, thereby saving shippers from unnecessary post entries which was supplied with the old system. Additionally, a change in the rate of exchange will also not result in post entries because it is managed under the payment bills in ICUMS. The senior customs officer mentioned, among others, an improved feedback system and expanded payment options as some of the advantages ICUMS has over the previous system. She, however, admitted that even though the new customs management system was developed to reduce clearance cost and time, it is currently experiencing some technical challenges. She appealed for calm as GRA Customs Division and all other stakeholders work around the clock to address the challenges to enable users enjoy the full benefits of ICUMs. On his part, Chairman of the Greater Accra Regional Shipper Committee, Nana Berima Dr. Oforiameya I, advised that customs should have been more responsive to the concerns of shippers when the new platform started experiencing challenges. He called for continuous engagement with shippers and other stakeholders on the way forward to addressing their concerns. Over 70 representatives from companies, trade associations, ministries, departments and agencies and other stakeholders partook in the two-day sensitization forum. The Greater Accra Regional Shipper Committee is one of the 10 regional shipper committees established by the Ghana Shippers Authority across the country. Stakeholders in the transit sector, including Ghana Shippers Authority, the Ghana Highways Authority, Niger Shippers Council, Mali Shippers Council, Ghana Revenue Authority, Customs Division, Burkina Shippers Council, Burkina Chamber of Commerce, National Security, and the State Insurance Company have reviewed the performance of transit trade for the first half of 2020. At the second quarter meeting of the Greater Accra Transit Shipper Committee held at the Ghana Shippers House, issues such as the impact of COVID-19 on trade and concerns and challenges associated with the implementation of the newly introduced integrated customs management systems, ICUMs, among others, were discussed by the stakeholders. Challenges raised include the return to manual clearance of goods at the ports, physical escorts of transit goods instead of tracking devices, and its attendant general delays leading to demurrage and rent charges. A representative of the Mali Shippers Council appealed to the Ghana Shippers Authority to intervene on behalf of transit shippers whose goods have attracted demurrage and rent charges due to the inability of the new integrated customs management system to process declarations on time. The head of Freight and Logistics of the Ghana Shippers Authority, Fred Esiedudate, assured stakeholders of the authority's preparedness to raise their concerns with the relevant authorities for redress. The head of Interstate Road Transit of the SIC, Anthony Osei-Ntiamwa, reported that 12,078 trucks carted transit cargo between January and March to Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, Benin, and Nigeria, while the national guarantor issued 8,672 transit bonds during the same period. The Transit Shipper Committee was established by the Ghana Shippers Authority to address challenges faced by shippers along Ghana's transit corridor and also deepen Ghana's trading relationship with landlocked nations of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. And the European Union has donated some PPEs worth about $500,000 to the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority. Additionally, also the vessel that was hijacked in Nigeria, the Beninois waters, it's a Ghanaian vessel, it's been brought to the port of Tema. The European Union, through its WeCups project, has supported the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority with about $500,000 cedis worth of personal protective equipment, PPEs, to help the fight against COVID-19 within the port community. The PPEs include surgical masks, KN95 masks, face shields, gun thermometers, gloves, goggles, overalls, gowns and sanitizers, and its accompanying dispensers, gallons of soap, as well as soap dispensers, and these are expected to be used in both ports operational and administrative areas and the GPHA health facilities. According to the EU ambassador to Ghana, WeCups, which is funded by the European Union and implemented by expertise funds in response to the COVID-19 outbreak, is ensuring that partner ports in Western Central African sub-regions are supported to manage and mitigate the impact of the coronavirus.
With the COVID-19 crisis, WeCups, like a lot of other projects of the European Union, decided to use some of their resources to strengthen the resilience and the capacity of our partner countries to fight against the pandemic.
She said the project is part of a wider policy of European Union to support maritime security in the Gulf of Guinea area, which ensures that the capacity of port authorities in the Western Central African sub-region is enhanced. The Director General of the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, Michael Luguji, praised the efforts by the European Union and their partners, saying the gesture would help the Port Authority to continue to ensure that Ghana's ports environment is safe for business. The European Union, through the WECAPS project, additionally supported the Regional Maritime University with 46,000 Ghana cedis worth of PPEs.
We went outsourcing all over Tema, Accra, to get the best product of PPEs to supply to GPHA and also Regional Maritime University. The Pro-Vice Chancellor of the Regional Maritime University expressed the significance of the donation to the tertiary institution, especially as it embarks on its continuity plans against the COVID-19 pandemic. Countries such as Cameroon, Congo, Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal, and Togo were also beneficiaries of the European Union WECAPS project for ports and maritime institutions on the continent. The Ghana flag tuna Persian vessel called Panofi Frontier that was hijacked by suspected Nigerian pirates in Benin waters on Wednesday at about 14 hours has been located and guided to the Tema port by the Ghana Navy. It is reported that there were 30-member crew on board the vessel, out of which 25 were Ghanaians and 5 were Koreans. 6 crew members, 5 Koreans including captain of the vessel and the Ghanaian cook called Kofi Opuni on board the vessel, are reported to have been abducted by the pirates and could still not be found at the time the vessel was brought to the port of Tema by the Ghanaian Navy. According to the Ghana Navy, they met the vessel at the Ghana-Togo border and brought it to the port of Tema anchorage on Thursday, 25th June 2020. The Navy reports that apart from the 6 crew members who had been captured, the remaining 24 crew were safe and in Ghana, but the Navy is still gathering detailed information on the entire incident. Security agencies at the port of Tema, including the Port Security, Marine Police, Navy, and members of the Joint Port Control Unit, have all joined forces to investigate the incidents to unravel the circumstances leading to the hijack. The Ghana Maritime Authority has celebrated seafarers. As Ghana joins the rest of the world to mark the 10th annual Day of the Seafarer, the Ghana Maritime Authority has called for the recognition of seafarers as key players in the fight against the coronavirus pandemic. According to the GMA, seafarers are essential to the shipping sector, thus the need to provide them with support and ensure that they are given the recognition they deserve for keeping the world moving in these trying times. The Director General of the Ghana Maritime Authority, Thomas Kofi Alonzi, outlined 5 protocols intended to serve the interest of seafarers within the context of the global health crisis. He announced GMA's recommended framework of protocols for ensuring safe ship crew changes and travel, industry guidance for ship operators for the protection of the health of seafarers, recommendations on facilitating the movement of offshore energy sector personnel, guidance relating to the certification of seafarers, and operational considerations for managing COVID-19 cases or outbreak on board ships. Ghana Maritime Authority has continuously worked closely with port facilities to ensure that seafarers on board ships who are in need of immediate medical care are given access to medical facilities on shore. Meanwhile, government has facilitated the evacuation of 28 seafarers trapped at sea due to global ban on crew exchange. This is Ghana's first crew evacuation since the coronavirus outbreak. At about 2 p.m., a chartered flight touched down with 10 Turkish seafarers and other nationals. The crew went through the COVID safety protocols at the airport. The police and national security joined managers of the crew and officials of the Ghana Maritime Authority to ensure compliance with all safety protocols. The crew were among many others who had been stranded at sea and on land due to travel restrictions on ship crew change. The leader of the group shared his experience. The crew were transported to the port of Tema to meet their colleagues for the change.
Okay, so our topic for today is celebrating the African integration and positioning countries to harness the potential of the African continental free trade agreement area. And next week, thereabout, I think on the 7th of July, is supposed to be the day that Africa is going to use to celebrate integration of our continent. That came up from the last year, 7th July, 2019 meeting that the heads of states of African countries or AU members met in Niger. They concluded that we use the 7th of July every year to celebrate. So we're going to talk about the celebration. What do we have to celebrate at this continent? And also what potentials are there for integrating as a continent? My guests already settled, and you know, they are going to join me from a distance. I've been telling you that these days we're all learning how to do this virtual stuff. And some are joining me far away from Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, where the AU headquarters is located. But first in Ghana, Mr. Joseph Atamensa is the Principal Policy Advisor to the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, UNECA. Mr. Atamensa, if you can see us, just give us a small wave. Okay? Can we see Mr. Atamensa? Frank? Okay, so I'm sure we'll get to see Mr. Atamensa along the line. Mr. Anthony Kwesinya Mebefi is a technical advisor, multilateral, regional, and bilateral trade, Ministry of Trade and Industry here in Ghana. He will be speaking to us from the perspective of Ghana's Ministry of Trade and Industry, preparedness, and all of that. Ziad Hamoui is the national president for Ghana Borderless Alliance. From the civil society perspective, Ziad should be sharing a lot with us. Also joining us all the way from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, is His Excellency Thomas Kwesi Quartey, Deputy Chairperson, African Union Commission. Ambassador Quartey will also be joining us. Now, what it is that Ambassador, it's about, let me see, it's over 6:25. So this time is 9:25 in Addis Ababa. That's quite late. So we decided to speak with Ambassador Quartey a little earlier so that we let you listen to his perspective. We can let him go and sleep, even though he's monitoring us from Addis Ababa. And then those of us in Ghana can commence our conversation together and live. So let's go listen to His Excellency Kwesi Quartey, the Deputy Chairperson of the African Union, on his perspectives on African integration and what we can do as a country to harness the potential of the continental free trade area. Your Excellency, good evening and thanks very much for joining us on Iron Port here in Ghana. How are you doing, by the way, sir?
Fine, thank you. Good evening, and thank you for having me.
Now, just about a year ago, on the 7th of July, heads of states of African Union member countries met in Niger and decided that there's a lot to celebrate as far as the integration of Africa is concerned. If you can highlight some of the significance of integrating this continent for us.
Thank you. You know, we decided to call July the 7th African Integration Day because that was the day which the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement was launched.
Okay.
That was the day when we got requisite ratifications and set it into motion. Now, if you cast your mind back a little into history, why do we say we have to integrate? If we agree that we need to integrate, that is at the same time accepting logically that we are not quite integral.
Yeah, yeah.
You have to go back to the partition of Africa and the Berlin Conference of 1884-85, when European potentates met in Berlin and decided to divide the continent to prevent each of them from fighting each other over Africa. Now, in that conference, King Leopold, whose statue now they're threatening to pull down in Belgium, said, we must do all we can to get a piece, as large a piece of this magnificent African cake. It's a magnifique gâteau africain. To their mind, Africa was a piece of cake to be cut up and divided and devoured.
I see.
And that's exactly what they did. And out of this division arose the modern African nation. Okay. So the modern African state did not always exist. It existed at the point of time, and it came to exist at the result of the division and partition of the continent. So all that the African Union has been trying to do, and the arrival of the Continental Free Trade Area was a very significant part of this, was to disentangle the knots we're tied in, bring ourselves closer together, and trade with each other. You notice that before independence, there was hardly any trade or connection between Francophone Africa and Anglophone Africa.
Yeah.
If you see any railway lines in Ghana or the Gold Coast, they were from Obuasi or Takwa to the harbor.
Yeah.
No railway line trying to think Cote d'Ivoire and the Gold Coast, or Gold Coast and Lomé,
yeah,
or Gold Coast and Upper Volta. And that was deliberate. And that was what kept us apart. And with independence and the arrival of an important and dynamic leader like Kwame Nkrumah, he brought about the All African People's Conference, OAU, which sought to fight for the political independence. And now that the political independence has been won, we are seeking to bring economic independence. And to do that, the Continental Free Trade Area Agreement is a very significant part of it because it allows trade and economic development between the countries. It enlarges the economic space and allows us to take advantage of economies of scale.
Your Excellency, is that also to admit to a large extent that ever since the establishment of, say, AU since the 60s, the early 60s, until we had the AFTA, as a continent, we haven't made a lot of efforts to integrate until after?
Yeah, you know, the OAU was mainly occupied with political liberation.
Mm.
The countries, first of all, had to win political independence. Kwame Nkrumah said, seek ye first the political kingdom. With political independence,
okay,
you have the authority now to develop your country the way you want. It was not until the liberation of South Africa that the whole continent could be said to have been politically liberated. And then the issue now, what do you do with this independence? What do you do with this liberation? Liberation is nothing if you cannot improve your economic lot.
Yeah.
So the question now which arose was how to transform this political independence into economic independence and economic maturity. And that means manufacturing, moving away from the kind of economies that you have relations only the colony and the metropole, like Cote d'Ivoire and France, the Gold Coast and the UK. Now we have to trade within ourselves and expand the economic space. If you look at the economies of Europe, intra-European trade is about 60%. Intra-Asian trade is about 50 to 60%. Intra-African trade is 10%.
Mm.
Now, whenever there's an increase in intra-African trade by even 2%,
yeah,
GDP rises by a factor of 10.
Yeah.
So it is important for us as Africans to move freely within our continent, to trade with ourselves, and create a larger economic space which will attract investment.
Your Excellency, so if we say we are celebrating African Integration Day, which of the integrations are we celebrating? The political integration or the economic integration which we have just begun with the Continental Free Trade Area?
Actually, we are simply recognizing how far back we have come.
Okay.
And setting for ourselves a vision and agenda to work towards. So the cynics might say that there's no cause for celebration.
Mm-hmm.
But if you really look back and see that this was a continent where the people themselves in Africa and Ghana, the Gold Coast was the centerpiece of this, were merchandise.
Yeah.
International trade began with the capture and sale of human beings of Africa.
Yeah.
Over 20 million were taken away by force. So if you cast your mind back and see how far back we have come, and other continents were annihilated completely. The Caribs and the Indians were completely made extinct. We have something to celebrate. We have a lot hang together and fight for. It just shows you the resilience of the African people and their potential, given the right leadership, the right conditions, and the energy of our youth. You know, Africa has the largest youth population in the world. Now, that can be a crisis or an opportunity. If we invest for our youth, give them an all-inclusive secular education.
So, if I may ask, what sort of specific targets have countries and and AU itself set for this whole agenda of economically integrating the continent?
The African, the Abuja Treaty set the year 2063 as a year to attain the common market, the single integrated common market.
Yes. And has that been done?
The year 2058 to achieve the African Economic Community. The CFTA is only the beginning. Time is on our hands. You know, our ambitions have been a little upended by the COVID crisis.
Let me take you back again to some of the specific targets set by the AU. And I want to know, in the directions of benefiting from the economic integration, what should members or citizens of member countries be expecting? So if I'm a youth, I am vibrant, I am determined to cross the Mediterranean to Eastern Europe, for instance, what should I be expecting from this whole integration, economic integration of our continent?
We need first of all to ensure that our youth have all-inclusive education. We need to work towards putting every African child in school, boy or girl. We need to start to plan our economies so that if you are having 400 students out of university, you already have planned to have a place for 400 students to work. You know, we need to coordinate and plan a little more. For some time now, we have been following World Bank free market economies. Now, that myth of the spirit of the World Bank reasoning has been exploded. We are beginning to see that it is important to plan as well as to have a free market. And I think that if Africa and African economies, the African leaders, will start to emulate some of that, we shall begin to consciously focus on opening our borders and having cooperation between us. For instance, Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire used to be competitors in cocoa production and marketing.
Yes.
Now we have a strategic agreement where Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire are harmonizing the planning and the production of cocoa together. And together we control about 70% of the world's production.
Yeah.
We can begin to affect the price. We can begin to consciously now entice developed countries to come and site their factories, their excess capacity in Africa. You can probably site cocoa manufacturing between the borders of Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire and have Ghanaians and Cote d'Ivoire citizens work there together. If we are beginning to do more of that, our youth will now have more hope in the government and will have the less likelihood or less tendency to do dangerous things like crossing the Sahara out of desperation. Our youth are rational, and when they see good governance, they know it. Yeah. But the challenge now is for those in government to live up to expectations.
And that's what I was going to come to. To what extent have member countries of your organization bought into some of these objectives that you are outlining? Because typical example is we do not have full cooperation of Nigeria, for instance, opening its borders. Now, prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, the borders of Nigeria had been closed to neighboring countries. Till today, they are closed. And there are no intentions, or we haven't gotten any clarity as to whether they will be open to neighboring countries as soon as COVID is relaxed. What sort of cooperation are you getting from member countries in these directions?
You know, those are the realities that we have to contend with. What is interesting is that in this whole negotiation of the Free Trade Area Agreement, the main negotiator was a very brilliant Nigerian intellectual, trade economist. One of the main forces behind this was General Obasanjo, also in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Sometimes, internal politics and the need to win elections get in the way. But Nigeria has ratified the agreement now, and they are on board. And the more the free trade area agreement begins to yield benefits, the more people will warm up to it. We have to see more and more the continental interest and less the national interest. But, all habits die hard, and we have to work slowly to overcome these.
Yeah. So if you take the case of Nigeria, for instance, without necessarily sounding like targeting them, but if you take that case, for instance, what action has the continental body taken towards Nigeria in letting them understand the need to properly balance their internal politics against the continental interest?
No, the Nigerians understand that very clearly. But you have to understand practical politics. If I were a politician and have an election next month, and I know that the greater part of my constituency are against an idea, you would think twice about changing an idea which is going to cost you politically.
Yeah, because, Your Excellency, that's where people have had difficulties with regional bodies in this on this continent. For instance, if you take the European Union, member countries beyond persuasion are pushed to undertake or comply to certain values that are of the interest of the entire region. As we shift towards AFTA, what is the AU, for instance, doing to ensure that beyond just theoretically ratifying treaties, member countries are pushed to ensure implementation of them as well?
It's about the maturity of institutions. The European institutions are more mature and have more teeth. The European Court of Justice, for instance,
yes,
can make a ruling, and the generality of the member states will go abide by the ruling. There was recently a situation where the EU went into an agreement to give fishing rights to Morocco over a parcel, some part of the continent which actually belonged to the Sahrawi people. Now, they brought this matter to the European Court of Justice, and the ruling was that the European Union did not have jurisdiction of that place.
Yeah.
The jurisdiction did not belong to Morocco, but it belonged to Sahrawi. The European Union complied.
Yeah.
It's about adherence to rule of law. It's about general maturity in operating according to law. In Africa, the African Court of Justice has made several rulings which have not been entirely complied with.
I see, and that's dangerous.
Part of it is because in an international setting, you cannot enforce a ruling by force. You are hoping and persuading the sovereign country that in the final analysis, its interests are better served in being seen as operating in accordance with the rule of law. Let me give you an example of Ghana, for instance. There was a time when Ghana was minded to go along with Morocco in trying to disregard again the rights of the Sahrawi people. Now, this matter came to the attention of the AU. I had to call the authorities in Ghana, and they were very uncomfortable. But I told them a section of the Ghana Constitution obliges that Ghana must conduct its foreign policy in accordance with international law.
Yeah.
This was an entrenched clause. So reluctantly, we found out our hands were tied. And Ghana obliged and went along with the tenets of its constitution. So what I'm saying is that these things sometimes present you with initial difficulties.
Yeah.
But if you're a country known for rule of law, sometimes just that reputation itself moves you in the direction of rule of law, and we all end up in a better space.
Yeah, but the other desire that a lot of people are also having is that, is there a way to fuse the rule of law of member countries to that of the region? So if you take the European Court for Human Rights, for instance, there's a way the United Kingdom Human Rights Act, or HRA, has been able to fuse into that, same as other European member countries. Are you looking, does the African Union look into fuse the various acts of member countries, or have certain acts that would be able to fuse into the laws of the regional body, so that people or member countries are forced by their own act, passed by their own parliament, to respect and comply?
I agree with you entirely. But one also has to be realistic that sovereign countries can only be persuaded, they cannot be compelled.
I see.
Yes.
And don't you agree that that would be one of the difficulties we're going to have with the Continental Free Trade Agreement area? Because if you take ECOWAS, the difficulty had been that some member countries do not comply with treaties or policies that emanate from the regional body. A typical example is axle load implementation that was implemented by ECOWAS, that all member countries should not carry loads beyond the 60 axle, for instance. But I can tell you that several of the Francophone countries haven't implemented this. Now, Ghana began implementing this as far back as 10 or more than a decade ago, and ever since we started implementation of that policy, our cargo volumes dwindled because other importers or shippers or users of our routes preferred using countries that were not implementing the 60 axle load. So it's detrimental to the country that is complying.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you that that's a problem. But you see, I believe that you can attribute all this to political will. However, I think that the CFTA was received with a certain amount of enthusiasm, which has been, you could say, above average. African countries, whether out of hope or whatever, seem to have been attracted by the idea of the CFTA with rather more enthusiasm than with most continental endeavors that we have seen.
So what specific difference do you think we are likely to see with the economic integration? Okay, so that was the interview with His Excellency Ambassador Korte. He's also the Deputy Chairperson of the African Union Commission. We spoke to him from his office in Addis Ababa earlier in the day. And back here in Ghana, we have on the line Mr. Joseph Atamensa, is the Principal Policy Advisor to the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, UNECA. Also, Mr. Anthony Kwesi Nyamebefi is a technical advisor, multilateral, regional, and bilateral trade, Ministry of Trade and Industry. And also from civil society, the president of, or the national president of Borderless Alliance, Ziad Hamui. Gentlemen, thank you very much for standing by. And first of all, maybe I would go to Mr. Nyamebefi. From Ghana, Ghana's perspective, we have 7 days away from now or so to celebrate African integration. What does this mean for us as a country?
Okay, thank you, moderator, and good evening, viewers. Yes, to Ghana, African integration is very vital for our economic development, considering the fact that Ghana and other member states have small population and small market size. So we feel that regional integration is actually the way forward for our socio-economic development. And normally when we talk about African regional integration, it generally involves the free movement of persons, goods, services, productive integration, financial integration, and macroeconomic convergence, then regional infrastructure and interconnections. So we are actually quite happy that we are about to celebrate the maiden to commemorate the African Integration Day. And then the government is prepared to put in all it can to ensure that this maiden celebration comes on successfully. But unfortunately, because of the COVID, the government intends to hold a Zoom forum.
So for the senators who want to probably say that, is there anything at all to celebrate as a country? What has been the situation in the past? Have we not been integrating in the past? Have we not been trading among ourselves? What has changed now that we have to begin to celebrate?
Yes, okay, we've been trading among ourselves, but when you look at the intra-African trade, you find out that it's hovering around between 15 and 18%, which is quite discouraging when you compare it with maybe European integration of 63%, American integration of about 50%, Asia one also of about 48%. So we are anticipating that with the implementation of the ASCFTA, it will actually boost intra-African trade. And then since the AFCFTA is the first flagship project under the 2063, we are also expecting that it will also fast track the regional integration. That's why we are quite excited.
Okay, and earlier you talked about the fact that, sorry, Mr. Nyamiwevi, I didn't mean to relika. Okay, so earlier you talked about the fact that we are small market size, so we need to be excited when there's a move to trade among ourselves. What about the big market sizes, those who have big market within the region? Do you see the same enthusiasm to embrace this whole integration agenda as those of us who have small market sizes are doing?
Yes, in fact, most of them are also eager, to join the regional integration force, because the market size, you even realize that even in America, where they have about over 280 million population, they still join together to form this North Africa Free Trade Area. So even if you are a big market, the regional integration will still be good for you. So there's no need for any big country in Africa to stay alone. It is better for them to join together so that we all advance the integration process in a win-win situation.
Okay. I'm going to come back to you shortly, but I'll bring Mr. Atamenza in at this point to find out from you, Mr. Atamenza, from the global perspective, and because you are coming from UNECA, you probably stand the best position to give us, from the global perspective, how is the continent being viewed with this new drive for integration?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Achimman, and I also want to say good evening to the viewers all over. First of all, let's say that free trade area and regional integration are not two separate things.
Okay.
If you look at the theory of integration, you move from a PTA, you go to FTA, you go to the common market, and eventually you go into a monetary union, and then eventually you go into a economic community. So it is part of the gradation. So let us not see that trade is different from regional integration. To your question on the global picture, look, the reason why we had to double our efforts is that if you look at, and I think Mr. Jamibeth is more qualified to speak to this subject, is that we wanted to have a WTO Doha round of negotiations, which was supposed to be focused on development. Now we realized that changes in governments in the US, the Doha round has stalled. We looked into our books and we realized that we are not trading amongst ourselves very well. And the reason why we do not trade amongst ourselves very well, because we have similar products. We have what we call supply constraints, because even if you open up, we do not have diversified products. I mean, you can find plantain in Cote d'Ivoire, you can find cocoa in Cote d'Ivoire. So what is the reason to trade? So therefore, the question then becomes, how can you move goods freely within the continent?
Yeah.
And to move goods freely within the continent, and to be able to be in a better position to engage in the global marketplace, you needed to find the policy, the right policies. And the right policies, part of it is the free trade area. And I'm sure Ziad will speak to the fact that to complement any free trade area, you have to do trade facilitation. And facilitation is key. And facilitation is key when you have better infrastructure. Facilitation is key when you have diversified products. So therefore, Ghana doesn't have to sell its cocoa or sell its gold in the raw form, but you have to, for instance, find a way that you could do beneficiation, which means that you can turn the gold, instead of taking the raw form, you turn it into a gold necklace or a romantic ring. So the question, therefore, is, to answer your question, for us to become strong, and I think this is the point Mr. Bethy was saying, that Ghana alone is a small economy. Nigeria alone, no matter the population size, is still a small economy when you look at the global picture. So therefore, for us to do well, I mean, you're talking about 3 trillion economy as compared to billions economy for a country. So therefore, that's why I think the move is there. To go back to His Excellency Kwesi Korte's arguments that the political timing and everything, yes, it's true. From 63, when the OAU was formed, it was more focused on liberation struggle. 1994 is when we saw the apartheid regime fall in South Africa. And since then we decided that we needed to move deeply onto the development effort. But before then, we had the Lagos Plan of Action, the Abuja Treaty, and what have you. So I think, back to you, I want to make it simple. Look, what we want to do, and then I think Ghana should take advantage of what having ratified the Continental Free Trade, to ask yourself, what do you want to exploit from it? You want to look at the point that you don't want to stop exporting cocoa in its raw form. You want to be able to export chocolates to other and compete with the Belgians. And so therefore, it requires you to see how can you make your chocolate very, very competitive in the global marketplace. And I think this offers you opportunity. The second thing I think Ghana should look at, in my humble opinion, is that through the free trade area, Ghana could ask itself, I know that Minister Oforiatta has been thinking of having Ghana as a financial hub. Could you therefore look into the whole idea of, since trade is going to happen, there will be movements of capital, there will be movements of equity, there will be movement of financial so you could look at, why don't you think of also making Ghana a financial hub? And think of what would happen to these young people coming out of universities and being given jobs in having a kind of a Wall Street in Ghana. Let's think about it, and let's see how we can exploit it. So let us not look at it from trade alone as selling cocoa in its raw form, but look at it as a holistic. Because if it goes on, then you look at the aviation. I mean, now we are staying home because of COVID, but it will not stay home forever. So you have to look at aviation.
Yeah.
How are you going to look at it and to make Accra a hub? I mean, the benefits to Ghana, I'm just using Ghana as an example, but the benefits to Africa and so on is monumental, monumental. So we have to go into the drawing table and ask ourselves, what can we extract or what can we do and leverage what we have in Ghana in order for us to be able to harness whatever gains that is there to be had from the free trade area. And
Mr. Tamensan, we're already celebrating a year of deciding to get onto this level. Do you think, or do you see member countries thinking towards this direction? Are we prepared? Are we ready to embrace this whole integration economically as you're describing? Or you see that it's the business as usual as we have seen in the past?
Well, I think, you see, I mean, this is the similar point you raised with Ambassador Cote. I think the most important thing for us to look at it is that regional integration is an incremental process. It doesn't happen tomorrow. It's incremental. And let's celebrate, because from where we are, or where we came from, right? Look at from 63 to 1994, what the continent was focused on was to focus on liberating every square millimeter of the continent from colonial domination. And that ended with South Africa. Since 1994 to today, you have to ask yourself, what have we done? We realized that it was important for us to transform the Organization of African Unity into an African Union. And so 2002, we had the African Union. And the focus of that was to focus more on development. So look at our track record in the last 18 years, from 2002 to now. And 2002 to now, we've worked together as African continent. We've been able to have a continental free trade area. It's not an easy process, Mr. Ajmai. It's not an easy process. And Mr. Belfi can tell you the amount of political capital the president of this country put in order to get this ratification done, and also to get the secretariat. The amount of political capital the Minister of Trade, Alan Kojo-Shermantin, put at his disposal to get this thing done. The amount of political capital Minister Honorable Ayoko Botche put at his disposal, invested in order to get this thing done. So it's not an easy process when you are bringing 55 countries together, trying to get them to move forward. So I think there's celebration, and I think I would celebrate that, you know, we've come this far. But it's not enough. We still have unemployment. We still have poverty. We still have youth who needed to be taken up. We have issues about our gender imbalances, where women are not treated well. So we can look at all these things and ask ourselves and tell ourselves that we should begin to see business, we should begin to see farming, agriculture as a business. We don't look at it that way. If we look at it as a business, then you know that when you look at it, when you go into farming, you're not looking at just producing plantain, but you're looking at producing plantain chips, which could be on the table of a consumer in North America when he or she is watching TV. When you look at, don't look at it in the sense of we're manufacturing, we're going to go to Obuasi and get the gold, but let's think about beneficiation, turning that gold into a necklace. And you know, in what do you call it, Botswana, De Beers, Botswana government was able to sign a great agreement with De Beers to ensure that part of the diamonds that are extracted from Botswana would be processed in the form of jewelry. So therefore it has value, because in the raw form you get nothing out of it. Chocolate, I mean, like cocoa, which we get nothing. Our farmers are ripped off all the time. But think of it, that you have chocolate which competes with the Belgian chocolate. Belgium has no cocoa tree. Switzerland has no cocoa tree. So why is that they produce the best chocolates and we have nothing to offer? So let's begin to think of it. And I think when President Akufo-Addo talks about a life beyond aid, right? The country, These are the things that we need to talk about.
Yeah.
And this is what
I'll come back to you on a few of those, but let me bring Ziad at this point. Mr. Hamui, from the civil society perspective, the Borderless Alliance, what have you been observing as far as the continent and member countries of the African Union's enthusiasm to embrace this whole integration agenda, and our preparedness also to harness the potentials as far as economically integrating is concerned?
Well, thank you, Sami. Good evening to you and your guests. Let me first step back to say that I'm happy and I'm really grateful for you to organize this very timely event, because I think that so far we have demonstrated the commitment of the various sections of the Ghanaian leadership to regional integration. And that in itself is a big statement. That the various leaderships in a country, whether government or whether the African Union or all of the public figures within Ghana are committed to regional integration as a project.
Okay.
It is the way to go, and it is the future. Now, where we are actually discussing at the moment is not with the commitment to African integration. We are all agreed that we need it, because larger markets are accessible for everyone. What we are actually currently in the process of discussing is the implementation phase of how to bring together these various countries, their policies and their manufacturing and their industries together. So how to build a competitive industry, how to add value to our products. And look, let's be very honest here. When we look at the intra-African volumes of trade, it's not because there are no opportunities and there are no products that are tradable in the first place. I cannot personally believe that investors are trooping to Africa from all across Africa just because there is no potential or there is no need for investment. There is an investment, there is a high quality product that needs to be added, manufactured, produced in-house within the continent and then traded across. And I believe personally that the COVID-19 has highlighted the fragility of the African economies which are exporting raw minerals, materials, and oil products. Right? Yeah. And then what we do actually is that we import back the consumables in a value-added term, and we end up on a negative balance of trade. So I think we have been engaging in this very healthy discussion, and we have actually reached out through the various engagements to the fragile groups, to the youth, to the cross-border traders, to various and to the private sector. And I think with the Africa Integration Day, it is actually an opportunity for us to come together as various groups and various stakeholders, the public decision makers, the private enterprises, the civil society organizations, the think tanks, the membership associations, everyone who is based in Africa who believes that African integration has a future, to come together to see where the difficulties are, where the challenges are, and how to act in unison to determine the way forward. Now, from where we stand as a civil society organization, as Borderless Alliance in West Africa, we have seen a lot of movement in the right direction in West Africa. But keep in mind that West Africa is 15 countries. Yeah. West Africa is 2 regional economic communities. And I want to take you back when we were discussing, where you mentioned the example about the axle weight. Yeah. And the AFCFTA and the potential difficulties with the enforcement of some of its regulations. Mm-hmm. Let's keep in mind the fact that, for example, one of the issues why we reached this misunderstanding about the interpretation of the regulation on the axle weight was the fact that there were different political leaderships that interpreted one document in different ways. And then different countries chose whether they would choose this interpretation or that interpretation. So we ended up with the Francophones understanding it in one way, the Anglophones understanding it in a different way. And this created cracks and loops that were exploited by private enterprises. Because that is what people will do. They will exploit the loops into the regulations and they will push it inside. And I think one way that the African Continental Free Trade Area is going to handle and to these issues is by having the dispute resolution body. And you know that one of the protocols of the AFCFTA has to do with the dispute resolution. and it is under, there will be a body, an appellate body similar to what the World Trade Organization has, which will issue verdicts and which might possibly sanction to a certain limit some of the countries which are flouting some of the regulations. But then keep in mind that we are still also discussing in the second phase of negotiations. I think Mr. Nyamide, he knows exactly that we have still a way to go with some of the negotiations and some of the protocols. So I disagree with the fact that we don't have anything to celebrate. We have a lot to celebrate. We have accomplished within 2 years, from 2018 to 2020, we have accomplished the movement of an agreement for 55 countries, where 54 of the African countries have signed, where 30 countries have ratified, and along with all of the internal procedure that takes to get there. And then we have also engaged with the various factions of our societies in our various countries. So in Ghana, youth are asking, oh, what is the AFCFTA? What are the opportunities? Before that, it was just intergovernmental discussions, meeting after meeting after meeting, and it was meaningless. So there was no hope. I think now we have a lot to celebrate. We have a
But Ziad, you were former president for Borderless for the entire region, and you know the other countries, you are familiar with the other countries. Beyond Ghana, how do you see the readiness of the other countries, particularly those with the big markets? And I put that to Ambassador Korte earlier, referring directly to Nigeria, for instance. So you want to look at South Africa, the big markets within the continent. Do you see that sort of readiness for this?
Well, look, different countries have the same objectives. Like someone earlier said, even the largest market in Africa is a small market in comparison to the African continental market. 1.3 billion people is not a joke. It's a big market. And everyone has an opportunity, a business opportunity to use access into this market. But then what the AFCFTA is going to put into perspective is the fact that in order to access this market, you are also allowing access into your internal market. And this is done within the framework no longer of regions. Okay. The RECs, the regional economic communities, will still be relevant to a certain level. But then we are now talking about the continental framework. And we're talking within a framework of 55 countries.
Yeah.
And there are these crisscrossing interests between the politics, the social, the economic welfare. And then countries have different parameters to think altogether.
Okay.
They, for example.
Okay.
So you can see that there are market opportunities. And I am not saying that there are no challenges with some countries who one-sidedly wake up one day to decide that they are going to impose restrictions on access into their territories, because there's also always the sovereignty issue.
Yeah.
But now the sovereignty issue will have to be viewed from a continental aspect.
Okay.
Where we are fully aware that if we are producing something to a certain level and we want to export beyond these borders, then we have to ensure that our own borders are also open for others to access these markets. So even larger countries have an interest in opening up.
Mr. Atamenza, what would you say we can learn, the regional body and then the regional integration drive can learn from the various sub-regional economic bodies? If you take ECOWAS or SADC or UEMOA, for instance, what are some of the lessons that we can take out from being in those bodies and engaging in those bodies, and now our desire to have a whole continent integrated? Hello, Mr. Atamenza.
Oh, sorry. I thought the question was for...
No, actually, I moved to you.
Okay.
What are some of the takeaways from the regional, the sub-regional bodies, ECOWAS, UEMOA, and SADC and Co?
Look, I think we have to be careful here that when we look at ECOWAS or SADC or ECAS, which is the central, let's not look at them as separate entities. I'll answer your question of what we can learn from them.
Okay.
But these are the building blocks on which the continental integration is being built on. So whatever policies that ECOWAS embarks on, it is towards that dream of integration. Now, what can we learn from them? Look, most of the economic communities are at different stages. When I don't like to give grades and say that ECOWAS is better ahead than, I mean, I'm from ECOWAS, so obviously I'll be biased. But, you know, every economic community has achieved a lot. If you take, for instance, the East African community, which makes up 5 countries, Burundi, Rwanda, Tanzania, Kenya, and Uganda, you find that they have moved on and are now a common market, right? Although they have their challenges there. What do I mean by a common market? A common market means that they've passed what we know as the customs union, where they have a common external tariffs. They've allowed for movements of persons and labor, rights of residency, and so therefore the market allows for both labor and capital to move freely, and so therefore it's a common market. What can we learn from ECOWAS? So that's something I would say you learn from EAC. What can you learn from ECOWAS? ECOWAS has a 90-day free movement of persons. This is the envy of Africa. It has a common passport, an envy of Africa. It has a common medical arrangements, or what you call the WAHU, which is the health organization, a pride of Africa. Through UMOA, we'll get there. We're not there yet. UMOA has a common currency, you know, the CFA. Yeah. Now they want to come back on the ICUM. So there's a little bit of delinking from France, as you've heard. ECOWAS itself wants to have a ECO, a one common currency. So these are all in the works. That it's something which you can learn from. When you go into, for instance, SADC, you go to SADC, the Southern South Africa Development Community, you could say that you have a lot to learn from them in terms of when it comes to industrialization because of South Africa. Yeah. You have a lot to learn from them because of the kind of customs union arrangements they have with Botswana, Namibia, Lesotho, and Swaziland, the BNL's country. You have a lot to learn from them because of the run zone that they've communicated, they have, whereby these countries I mentioned, which are part of the SACU, or the South African Customs Union, are all linked to the South African rand, although they have their own currencies. Okay. So there's a lot you can pick from to learn. The key question, just 1 second. Okay. The key question is that, what does it mean? I think what we've not done well when we talk about regional integration is that what would it do for the youth in Akropong-Kwapem, where I come from? Yeah. How can he see that he's benefiting from this? Yeah. Now he can see he's benefiting from this if the chiefs led by Nana Kwesi Akufu III decides that instead of we are going to sell our cocoa to the cocoa marketing board, I am going to negotiate such that I have a factory somewhere on the Kwapem Ridge, which will be used to produce chocolates. What happens to the youth who roam on the ridge, who don't have jobs? Eventually they get jobs in the factories. When the factories comes down, what happens to real estate? People would want to have a place to stay, as real estate will go there. What happens to the banking? Banking will come. What happens to entertainment? Entertainment will come. Then what happens to tourism? So therefore they can look at the Ojura as a way of attracting people. So through this process, I've begun to tell you how you can pioneer your free trade area to satisfy a youth somewhere in Paga, who would have then access to the market in Burkina Faso. So we have to think holistically, and let's not begin to think always in the looking at small minds. Yeah. But
so then market. Let me then take it to Mr. Nyame Befi. He advises the Ministry of Trade and Industry in this country, and find out how we have positioned ourselves to bring the benefits of the continental free trade area, as well as integrating economically in the larger continent, down there to the regular people, as Mr. Atamensa is talking about, how the youth in this country can benefit. What structures have been put in place to harness and position us as a country to take advantage of that, Mr. Nyambefi?
Okay, so thank you very much for the question. But just let me just contribute to some of the things that you asked the two speakers.
Okay.
Before I move on.
That's fine.
You know, you were talking about some large countries not eager maybe to ratify the agreement, and then the enthusiasm. But if you look at the AFCFTA, you realize that this is one agreement that most African countries are keen to implement. So it's even on record that within 1 year and 1 month, you know, we were able to meet the minimum requirement for ratification for implementation to commence. And now we have more than 30. We have more than 30 countries who have actually ratified. It shows you the interest that they have.
But Mr. Nyambevi, you would also agree that the interest goes beyond the ratification of the treaties and the policies and all of that. Sometimes you want to see the enforcement,
apart from Nigeria,
compliance and all of that.
Almost all the so-called large countries with large markets, South Africa, Egypt, Kenya, Ethiopia, and all of them have ratified the agreement. So there is that enthusiasm. I believe that some have even ratified it, and they are just waiting for the ban on travel and other things to be lifted so that they physically deposit it.
Okay.
Anyway, then back to my question.
Yeah.
For Ghana, we have instituted what we call national. We have instituted what we call the national trade facilitation. Sorry, we have instituted what we call we have a national institution to implement the AFCFTA.
Okay.
And there we have three, we have the inter-steering committee. Then the second one, we have the national coordinating office. Then the third one, we have what we call the AFCFTA BIAT committee. Then the fourth one, we have the technical working groups for the BIAT committee. And then finally, we have what we call the stakeholders consultation and engagement. So for the APES one, which is the Inter-Ministerial Steering Committee, the president set it up for them to provide strategic direction and cooperate to support the AFCFTA implementation. Then when you come to the National Coordination Office, it is basically to facilitate the implementation and then serve as a one-stop information hub for the AFCFTA. And the main function that they are going to do is to liaise with the AFCFTA Secretariat and then the government to ensure that the operation goes on smoothly. Then the other side also, they are going to coordinate the technical working groups activities. Then when you come to the National AFCFTA BIAT Committee, it is made up of the Honorable Minister for Trade and Industry, who is the chair, and then the 7 BIAT clusters chairs. And these 7 clusters are trade policy, trade facilitation, enhancing productive capacity, trade-related infrastructure, trade development finance, trade information, and then factor market integration.
Okay.
So they are going to see to the implementation of this to actually boost intra-African trade from Ghana.
Okay. So the structures have been...
When you come to the low down, then we have the stakeholders engagement and consultation. And this has already been put in place, and we are going to enhance it within the COVID and look at innovative way, maybe through some virtual meetings to enhance it. And there we are going to inform the private sector, the civil society, and the general public on what the AFTA implies and the advantage they can take off.
Okay.
Then in the process also, we will collect input from them to help us negotiate the second phase of the AFCFTA and then they have standing issues.
Okay. So
meanwhile, it may interest you to also know that the AFCFTA, Ghana has already started implementing some of the AVIATs. So when you go talk about enhancing productive capacity, Ghana is already implementing the 1D, 1 district, 1F. We have this 1 region, 1 park, and then a whole lot of things. When it comes to trade-related infrastructure, we have the expansion of Terminal 3 in Tema. Then we even have also at the airport, expanded our market.
Okay.
You know, so there are a whole lot of activities actually going on right now, and then Ghana hopes to improve upon it, so that at the end of the day, we increase our intra-African trade for the benefit of the country.
Okay, I'll come back to you because I see that the outline is that the structures have been put in place, but I'll come back to you to find out if on the grounds, for instance, exporters are being engaged, importers are being engaged, the Swami magazine folks are being engaged, and we are telling them what we hope them to also contribute in line with this whole agenda that we are pursuing as a country. I'll come back to you on that. But Ziad, as you monitor, and I think that you happen to be in one or two of those committees, as you happen to monitor what's going on the ground, how prepared are we as a country embracing this whole economic integration agenda?
You asked me these two same questions before the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic, my answer would have been a little bit different. But now, let me tell you, Sami, Africa has been thrown a lifeline by COVID-19 because the whole world has realized that the current structure of the global economies and the international value chains is fragile. It took a tiny microbe to realize that outsourcing everything to Southeast Asia in order to reduce the cost is not working towards everybody's advantage. And now with the COVID-19 pandemic, the whole global value chains have become disrupted. With Europe, with the US, and other major markets experiencing disruptions with their importations, with their exportations, raw material, finished products, semi-finished products. And then everyone is now thinking about how to bring their value chains closer to home.
Yeah.
And I think that Africa is well positioned to benefit from that particular opportunity. Yes, we are still not at a point where the African manufacturing and industry is placed to rival the global competitors, but at least we have been given the opportunity to begin with ourselves and to build some kind of resilience on a national level.
Okay.
And then to build that resilience and extend it to the continental. Now, where that actually relates to your question is that, yes, we have instituted the policies, but now we are in the process of waiting for an assessment of the impact of the AFCFTA on the current structures of the market in order to determine how our policies align with what is on the ground.
Yeah.
I know, for example, that one of our CSO partners, which is CUTS Africa, is currently has submitted a study on the impact assessment of the AFCFTA, in particular value chains in Ghana. And then based on that one, I'm sure that this evidence-based study would be used to assess the impact of the current policies on the ground in particular areas, and that would allow some kind of corrective measures in order to make sure that the Ghanaian manufacturing and production becomes more competitive on an African scale.
Okay.
And I have to be a bit frank here. Ghana is still not the most competitive African power in manufacturing industry, but that is the aspiration. And that is the hope, because we know that the leadership, the highest leadership of the country, has repeatedly affirmed the need to transform ourselves into the hub of manufacturing and production and the star of Africa.
But how do we move away from verbally affirming to having it on the ground and seeing it? What would you say we should do now?
That is what I was telling you earlier when I was referring to the commitment to regional integration and now getting to the implementation phase. During the implementation phase, the structures that we have will be tasked with the assessment of the current policies on the ground, and then aligning these with the aspirations and the direction which you want to get to.
Okay.
Yes, we have technical working groups that will assess our manufacturing, our trading, our production policies, our trade facilitation initiatives, and then we will fine-tune that to the situation on the ground.
Okay.
And extend that on a regional level and then on the continental
Ziad, I'm
level.
going to bring Ambassador Korte back in just on the bit of the after, because he made me understand that you know, regularly we should have had implementation starting 1st July, which is just a few days away from today. But he said that we're likely to see implementation from January. Let's listen to him on after, and then we'll come back and wrap up on that angle. In the meantime, you can also send your comments if you're interested in the discourse and contribute to WhatsApp number 05590191177. Let's listen to Ambassador Korte. Regional bodies having demonstrated in the past, what are the uniqueness that we can find from now, 7 July 2020 going forward? These are going to be new that we haven't seen by other regional bodies, SADC, ECOWAS, and all that.
For instance, the work done by President Issoufou of Niger, who put so much effort, both heart and mind, into leading the drive towards the CFTA. You have to comment some of the heads of states who are champions. You have to comment also the work of the ex-heads of state, the Afro champions, some of the bankers, like Zenith Bank, like one of the bankers, Benedict Uraima, who have put so much capital down just to ensure that some of these things succeed. The work of the African Development Bank and their president Adesina, who put 30 billion on the table to assist countries who are having difficulties. You find a coordination of events that all together make me optimistic, because you don't often find this combination of events happening.
Okay.
But this time we can see it happening. So all we have to do is to push it along and work as hard as we can to make it happen. You have the CFTA in Ghana now. We have a president who has a very keen interest in African integration. Historically, I think that it's good that this has come to Ghana, because our first president worked very, very hard to put this together.
Yeah.
So a combination of factors all tend to be gravitating towards a positive development.
And Your Excellency, CFTA starting 1st July, as had been anticipated or not?
No, you know, the COVID-19 upended all our plans.
Okay.
So we have to focus on survival and making sure that populations are safe. As a result of that, the timetable has been amended a little bit. Okay. The Secretary General of the CFTA is stuck here in Addis.
Oh, he's in Addis Ababa, right?
No, he's stuck here in Addis. He's stuck here in Addis. You know, so we have had to amend our plans to in accord with the difficult realities that we face.
Okay.
Yes.
And have you said when, you know, we are beginning to see some easiness in everything. Have you said when?
Details have been said. I do not recollect exactly. I think 1st January, I'm told, is the time for it to come into operation. There's a summit, which we were supposed to have a summit in Jamena in May. That has been put forward to say October, November. You know, everything has been put back a little bit. We are having meetings virtually.
Yeah.
It's not exactly the same as meeting face to face, you know. But the determination is there.
Okay, so we are not sure. We are like, from what you're saying, is certain that we are not seeing His Excellency Wamkele Mene coming into Ghana or starting to work from his office from the 1st of July.
I'm having meetings with him here in Addis Ababa.
Okay.
And very much I'm waiting at that now.
Okay.
But he's stuck here. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Your Excellency, the other thing I want to find out, aside the dates that have been pushed here and there, to what extent would you say this pandemic, the COVID pandemic, has affected plans of us regionally integrating and probably economically?
No, it's clear that the pandemic has upended all our best state plans. It is clear. However, the other thing I have noticed is that with the equipment and stuff that we receive from China,
yes,
the question of their distribution has brought about more coordination, more togetherness, more solidarity among us as African states.
Yeah.
You know, states, even though they close their borders, agree to have their borders open at certain planned times so that these goods can reach their populations. It has shown us the extra value of working together rather than working as individual nations. And as Kwame Nkrumah used to say, the borders are artificial, Africans are the same people. We are beginning to realize that more and more.
Yeah. And what advantage can we take of this? Okay, so let me end there and come to Mr. Nyamebefi. Locally and in Ghana here, to what extent has the COVID pandemic, all these lockdown here and there, and you have led the negotiation team for a long time, and I see you engage in most of the things. To what extent has it affected us?
Yes, thank you. You know, before you can start trading, there are now 3 main outstanding issues that should have been finalized.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one is the finalization of the tariff liberalization schedules for state parties of the AFCFTA.
Yeah.
The second one is that now we have concluded negotiation on 90% of the rules of origin, remaining only 10%.
Okay.
And the expectation was that we should have been able to conclude it by March ending, the remaining 10%. And then we also have to also conclude and submit what we call schedules of specific commitments for goods in services. But unfortunately, with the COVID-19, all the meetings that were scheduled in March and April to finalize these 3 critical technical issues couldn't come on. So you find out that technically it's not possible to start trading from 1st July. Mm-hmm. The other factor too is that with the COVID-19, all the member states have now closed down their borders. So you realize that even if some member states are ready, it's not possible to freely trade across. So, and then this COVID-19 also has led into most industrial companies also closing down or running on shift. And then it has also reduced export orders, import orders, and what have you. And all these things have financial implications for the companies. So it will take some time for them to reassess their position in order to actually do production to the African market.
Okay, but let me find out. Sorry, Mr. Go ahead, Mr. Nyambefi.
Yes. So you find out that in terms of the COVID-19, there is negative impact on industries, on the negotiations, and then as the AU Deputy Chair said, even operationalizing the AFCFTA Secretariat in Accra has virtually been disrupted. You know, but there are also the positive side of the COVID-19. It has actually created an opportunity, as Ziad said, for some of the products, which we term essential products, like pharmaceuticals and PPEs, you know, that we used to import from the Far East, for them to be locally produced.
Okay.
So we even hope that when trading in the AFCFTA commences, we can now take that opportunity and export to other African markets.
Some are already advocating that the regional bodies begin to start thinking of easing borders. So ECOWAS, there's a call for ECOWAS, for instance, member countries to start opening up borders and all of that. Is that on the table for discussion?
Actually, they issued that statement just last week.
Yes.
Yeah, the ECOWAS member states.
Yes.
So the government will actually be looking at it.
What's our position? What's our country's position?
No, they are looking at it. They will be looking at it this week so that they look at the way forward.
You advise the minister on multilateral. Would you advise that as soon as possible we should begin to look at easing the borders up?
Oh, some of the trading for essential goods, I think that one, it will be in the right direction. So that one we will advise that they ease it back.
But would it be easy to only...
when you look at the whole statement that the ECOWAS stated, they are even talking about easing this thing in phases.
Yeah.
You know, which we think generally the government may be in support of that one. Because the government was involved in the consultation before they issued those statements.
Okay, let me find out from Ziad. Ziad, from civil society perspective, would you advocate that we begin to ease up our borders now, beyond, you know, some of the necessities or the essential commodities and all of that? Can we start opening up?
So let me give you an answer that has to do with what the work of the Borderless Alliance has been contributing to on a regional level. Because we have been selected as part of the experts who have contributed our technical recommendations to the Interministerial Committee on how to proceed with the gradual opening up of the borders, bearing into mind the COVID-19 situation.
Okay.
And so let me give you like a quick synopsis of how we went about it.
Please, a quick
2 weeks ago, we gave our various contributions. For example, Borderless Alliance discussed the border situation, what was happening with the movement of the goods. The goods were moving, but there were disruptions because of the various unsynchronized curfews and lockdowns, and so the people who were actually moving the goods were unable to move, and that was disrupting. And then there was the actual movement of people, which is completely stopped all across West Africa. And so the West African Health Organization also gave its own overview about the development of the COVID-19 situation across West Africa. So bearing all of this into mind, we have agreed and we have proposed guidelines on how to proceed, and let's say we have developed protocols on how to move with the opening of borders and how to deal with the boarding, with the crossing of borders, with the disembarkment, and with the requirements, the health requirements, the actual...
And is that supposed to include all goods or specific goods?
No, it was actually, our guidelines were for land, air, and sea movement of persons and of goods. And so the persons will actually have to observe certain protocols in order to ensure social distancing.
So what I'm saying is that for all persons and for all goods, or for specific individuals and also some essential goods?
No, for the gradual reopening of the borders, for the movement of people and cargo, in observance of specific protocols. So the guidelines have been developed, and the proposed schedule has been already sent to the Interministerial Committee on Trade, Logistics and Transport.
Okay.
We are currently in a position where the report of the technical recommendations has been adopted and submitted for the final approval of the heads of state.
As I'm concluding, let me bring Mr. Atamensa. Mr. Atamensa, would you advise that the regional bodies begin to open up now?
Well, I think you have to be careful, and every country needs to look at the specificity of where they are in terms of the infection rates. And so it's very difficult to come with a blanket statement and say, let's open up for everything. We have to make sure that the country's interest is also protected in a way that it doesn't spike up the rate. So I think, yes, there has to be opening up because we cannot be locked down forever.
Yeah.
But there has to be a way that we can look at the regional protocols like the ECOWAS one and see how that could be addressed in phases.
Okay.
But since I have the floor, let me talk about something which I think we've not talked about.
Okay.
And that is digitalization.
Okay.
Speeding up e-commerce. You know, all these COVID issues that we are faced with, we've Zoom has taught us that we can still work.
Yeah.
We can still have an interaction, some sort of interaction. It does not really replaces physical meetings, but at least we are still working.
Yeah.
So we have to begin, and again, that's what I'm trying to emphasize, that we have to begin to look at e-commerce. So therefore, if we're going to go into e-commerce, what does that mean? The MTNs, the Vodafones, the digital world would have to be upgraded in Ghana to make sure that they are there to be able to support that kind of commerce that we are talking about. And I think part of the whole idea of the CFTA also includes the need for us to speed up that.
Okay.
The other thing which digitization could do for us also, in terms of health, I mean, as Ziad rightly pointed out, and I think Mr. Befi also pointed out, is that we've been exposed through COVID, how fragile our healthcare systems are. Now, with digital, we might be able to improve our healthcare system in the sense that you can have telemedicine.
Yeah.
And that would be able to take care of a doctor sitting in Accra, taking care of a patient in Walewale in the northern region.
Okay.
So we should begin to, I'm just advocating that we should begin to become creative and take advantage and take the opportunity that COVID has presented to us. It is negative, yes, but there are some opportunities that we can use to be able to speed up things that we can do in order to fast track development.
Okay.
So I think
Mr. Atamensa, somebody wants me to ask you this question before you end. It says, what common language are we coming to use in trading among ourselves? In Africa, we have Afrikaner, Swahili, Hausa, etc. Which of these languages cut across in choosing one? What is the selection criteria? For example, population size, etc. How is it going to work? I am wondering. Do you think we should be looking at a common language?
I think trade doesn't care about language. I think you can still trade without in any language. I mean, our airlines are flying from different countries.
Yeah.
There are certain codes which, in terms of standardization, it's in English,
Okay.
but they still fly. They
Okay.
they will not speak the English, but they still fly, or
Okay.
the French. So I think language is not, I don't think it's an issue. I would rather say we probably should think more about having a common currency than maybe thinking of a common
of a language. I'm going to have Ziad and Mr. Nyamibe, if we have just the last 30 seconds each. And what I would want to know from Mr. Nyamibe is, what are the plans? Are we doing something as far as the celebration day is concerned?
Yes. Okay. Thank you for that question. In fact, the government is planning to hold a virtual forum on Tuesday, 7th July.
Okay.
To discuss generally on the AFCFTA and the African integration.
Okay.
And within early this week, the details will be communicated to the public.
Okay, thank you. Ziad.
Get link, book up to it.
Okay, Ziad, civil society perspective, I know that your outfit, the EU is also expecting something from your outfit. Share with us.
Yes, but I have to come, even if it takes from my 30 seconds, I have to say that we do not advise for an immediate opening of the borders, but a gradual one, careful one, and then by steps. That is what we recommended, and taking into consideration the COVID-19 situation. Now, what we want to say with regard to the Africa integration is that we need to accelerate our digitization. We need to look at electronic trade and commerce.
Okay.
That is an opportunity for us to ensure that we build our economies and that we integrate faster.
Okay.
Now,
I have to...
part of the second phase of the negotiation, so we have to move faster with it. We have to keep on thinking about driving Africa integration because it is the future. There is a political will. All we have to do is sort out the challenges, and we'll go on.
I'm going to have to end you here because we, I think in about 10 minutes away from now, we should be hearing from His Excellency the President, who will be addressing the nation on the COVID update and all of that. But let's speak in the national news and we'll be right back. Under quarantine in Antwerp until July 1, 2020. It is reported that 15 out of 26 crew were found to have tested positive to coronavirus or COVID-19. 2 other crew are said to be hospitalized and their illness and conditions have not been made clear. All others are kept on board in separate cabins. Meanwhile, Ro-Ro cargo ship Grand Cotonou was put under quarantine in Hamburg, where she arrived on June 24, 2020, from Netherlands. 2 of the crew were found to have tested positive to COVID-19 SARS-CoV-2 virus. One of the crew members have also been hospitalized, and his illness and condition is yet to be known. One of them was hospitalized. The rest of the crew are under quarantine, all cargo operations suspended. The ship is shipped, and the ship is shipped to berth. A weak demand for LNG stemming from the COVID-19 mitigation efforts is being reported as mild winter in the United States and higher than normal stockpiles in Europe and Asia are all combining to have an impact all along the LNG channel, according to news reports from S&P Global Platts and the U.S. Energy Information Administration. The U.S. EIA says that in 2019, on an annual basis, the United States became the world's 3rd largest LNG exporter, with only Qatar and Australia exporting more LNG. However, new market data from IHS Markit in the EIA update shows that daily neutral gas deliveries to U.S. facilities that produce liquefied natural gas for export are down by as much as 60% between March and June 2020 due to the negative impact of COVID-19 pandemic. The UK government joined in the worldwide efforts to mark the Day of the Seafarer and recognize the vital contribution of seafarers to keep the global economy function. Contributing to the ongoing dialogue to recognize the challenges and better support seafarers, the United Kingdom announced that it will host the first international summit on the impact of COVID-19 on crew, bringing together the United Nations, political and business leaders from across the globe. June 25, 2020 was the 10th anniversary of the Day of the Seafarer, as proclaimed by the International Maritime Organization and the United Nations, coming at a particularly challenging time as seafarers continue to struggle with the issues created by the COVID-19 pandemic. A broad range of organizations will be joining in seeking to further raise the concerns of crew welfare. This year, the Day of the Seafarer campaign focuses on the calls to recognize seafarers as key workers and to provide them with the support, assistance and travel options open to all key workers during the pandemic. IMO Secretary General sees the opportunity to highlight the unique and essential work of seafarers.
Marking the Day of the Seafarer, the Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore undertook several initiatives designed to assist seafarers in the port, as well as highlighting its ongoing efforts to facilitate crew changes and provide support to the maritime community. The MPA of Singapore has established a controlled and regulated environment to provide a safe corridor for crew members while also minimizing the risks to public health. Since the end of March, the MPA has approved more than 13,000 cases of crew sign-ons and sign-offs involving some 650 companies and 1,150 ships. Nearly half of these crew changes involved tankers, while the remainder was divided evenly between container ships and bulk carriers. Approximately 100 of these seafarers required medical attention on shore, whilst most passed through the port joining or leaving their vessels. Okay, so Josephine from Paul of TV3 has a very beautiful story on the seafarers that I'm sure will be airing on TV3. She supported us with some of those stories that you saw on there. Josephine, thanks a lot for that input. Executive producers of this program is Nana Isi Suderberg and Mrs. Esther Jebidonko. My producer general for this week and for some time now has been Joe Apia Jobone. He's the one-man commander making things happen, as well as the technical producer for the program, Frank Gomelesio. Henry supported big time Bosompra, Joseph, as well as Alex is always behind and making it happen. Let me say a big thank you to also the men that we had speaking to us, some from Addis Ababa. That's His Excellency Thomas Kwesi Kwate, Deputy Chairperson, African Union Commission. He spoke to us all the way from Addis Ababa. Also, Mr. Joseph Atamensa, as a Principal Policy Advisor to the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, that's UNECA. Mr. Anthony Kwesi Nyame Befi is a Technical Advisor, Multilateral, Regional and Bilateral Trade, Ministry of Trade and Industry here in Ghana. Also, Mr. Ziad Hamou is the National President, Ghana Borderless Alliance. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. I'm sure next week we'll also have a different story to tell as far as integrating the continent is concerned. See you next week.